What you just said, is that really how you feel?
I can't remember what I was thinking just now. But given the situation, it wouldn't be surprising if the child did resent me.
Doesn't that feel like a burden?
To train for speed, you have to wield a sword with extra weight. The burden itself is what makes you stronger. That child will be one of the many reasons for me to become stronger. I will never forget him. I won't forget. If I had been stronger, I wouldn't have let the Hollow take him from his mother. He should have had more time to laugh with her, give her gifts, and help her with chores. But that child was right about one thing. I no longer have the chance to help my mother again.
Miyabi.
Thank you for today. Without you, we wouldn't have had the chance to comfort that mother. Why do I feel like I'm always troubling you?
Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Zenless Zone Zero. These games, even while being under the same parent company of Hoyoverse, have vastly different audiences and demographics, to the surprise of no one. You would be able to catch this in any of the marketing between the three games, but I dare say these differences are noticeable even in the announcement trailers for each game. Initially announced in 2019 and 2021 respectively, Genshin and HSR both put a lot of focus on the world and the scale of the adventure ahead of you. How far does the horizon stretch within the confines of Mondstadt? What unique things will you get to see in the great beyond of the universe in HSR? These trailers, in my opinion, put the adventure first, and rightfully so. The adventure is a big appeal of these games, but with Zenless it's different. Not just in its flashier animation and its trailer being much more fast-paced, but in how much the trailer puts a focus on its characters. Comparatively to most Hoyo properties, Zenless and its cast of characters come with a vibrance and unique color to them. Even through the 11 we see in the initial trailer, there's so much to unpack here. How about the cutting hairs and it having a dual-wielding robot man and a lady wielding a black hole-shooting suitcase for a weapon? Or Victoria Housekeeping, showing a small maid with a circular saw stuck to a pole, and my brother in Christ, is that Wolf O'Donnell? And to think this isn't even the full roster of Zenless Zone Zero. Make no mistake though, there's one character in this trailer that stands out above the rest of them, and that is her. This gorgeous fox girl is named Hoshimi Miyabi. She is the leader of the Hollow Special Operations Section 6, and officially named by the game as a Void Hunter. By this point in Zenless' life, Miyabi has become synonymous with the game itself. If you've even heard of ZZZ, you've probably heard of her. I'd even be willing to wager that she's even more of a mascot for Zenless than the actual mascot itself. No offense, Ambi. And of course, there's a lot to like here. Her badass animations, her aloof personality portrayed greatly by Christina V, and the fact that she is broken in game. These are all points that we will get to in due time, however, because as of this video going up, it has been a full year since Miyabi has released in Zenless Zone Zero, and of course, I wish to honor this character so dearest to me by going through her history within Zenless and how she ended up at the current state she's in. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, let's go over just why Miss Hoshimi Miyabi is so special. The reason for that small bit of exposition at the beginning was to set the stage for this particular footnote of our journey. As Miyabi was one of the first characters to be revealed in ZZZ's lifespan, she stole eyes immediately upon her reveal. However, upon looking at early CBTs for Zenless, a lot is different from the Miyabi we currently know. This is to be expected, of course, betas are for testing, but it's wild to see how much was different. Let's do a bigger breakdown. First, Miyabi wasn't really the anomaly-focused beast we know her as today. While she remained as an ice DPS, she actually used to be an ice attacker, taking up Ellen's role before she was brought into the CBT. Considering how Miyabi works now, being focused on crit unlike any other anomaly character, I wonder if that was based on what she used to be. Secondly, Shimotsuki, Miyabi's incredibly strong high damage dealing EBA, works very differently in the beta. Miyabi only needed 3 charges, known as arcane blades back then, to unleash her strongest attack, compared to the current 6 she needs from her fallen frost points. She's also missing her enhanced dash as well, but I'd imagine this was added very late into her development. And while not mechanically unique to Miyabi, she's missing a lot of the effects from her animations. This includes a ton of the blue flames that would emit from her blade, and the unique frostburn effect on enemies that would be placed upon being hit by an attack. Again, considering this was the first CBT, this only makes sense. But hey, it's still nice to see Miyabi's humble beginnings. All of this was great and all, and sets Miyabi up to go through the other CBTs as a popular character that would release in 1.0 once Zenless would drop on July 4th of 2024. If it weren't for one tiny detail. See, here's the deal. You, rightfully so, might be wondering to yourself, how did Miyabi change as the CBTs changed and the game would develop? That's the thing. Miyabi wasn't in those future CBTs. Crazy, right? The second closed beta test for Zenless was announced on November 4th of 2023, and would release 20 days after, and run all the way until December 24th. And despite every character from the initial CBT being included in this new one, Miyabi was strangely absent. To this day, many people don't know why this ended up being the case. Some speculate it's because of how Miyabi was the only limited character available in the CBT, and they wanted to have it reserved for base roster characters. Others say it's because of her popularity, and how that would innately cause people to not want to try the new characters added into the second CBT, which, considering how people view Miyabi now, is a very fair statement to make.
Lady Miyabi, please step on me!
The mystery of why Miyabi was removed from the closed beta test simply put so many more eyes on her. Yes, a lot of it was from people desiring an answer, but a primary amount of that desire for one came from how people wanted to play Miyabi again. People wanted to see her kit fleshed out, that potential design realized into the current state of the game. But even when Zenless would have a third closed beta test, Miyabi remained absent, and so, this mystery would remain unsolved as Zenless closed in on its release date, and soon became available to the public. And this, my friends, is where the magic truly begins. The thing that must be clarified to the audience watching is that for many players, myself included, knowledge about Miyabi wasn't all that common. In fact, our first endeavor with the character in the story was the first many of us had even heard the name. That means for Miyabi to woo a host of new players, they would need to give her a good first impression. Did they do this? Well, to answer that question, let's start with how we even met her in the first place. After completing Chapter 1, part of our intermission has Shepard, our commission-giving info broker, grant us backdoor access to an investigation in Hollow Zero. In the world of New Eridu, this massive hollow is said to be the first ever, with all major hollows discovered in New Eridu deriving from the companion hollows of Hollow Zero. Lots of hollows, I know. It is also the primary catalyst for the fall of the old capital, Eridu, which acts as a humongous footnote in the game's lore and story. Needless to say, only the most qualified investigators are sent into Hollow Zero in order to conduct research there. Masquerading as an independent investigator, Belle and Wise make their way to Sky Outpost and meet the crew that'll send us on our way. After debriefing with Ray of the Sky Outpost and meeting with an official HIA examiner, we're set and ready to move out. Of course, this is simply our first mission into Hollow Zero. There's no way we'll come face to face with the kind of threats Hollow Zero can breed. And if somehow that scene didn't already give you the idea we were in for something special, just watch.
Where is she? She's over there!
Okay, let's try to break down what we just saw. First off, this batch of scenes is our first introduction to the game's first true big boss, Nineveh, a monstrous symbiotic ethereal swarm that towers over every enemy we've encountered so far in Zenless. The Bane of Hollow Zero acts as an unthinking natural anomaly, constantly pouring out ether energy until it overflows, transforms, and kills all in its vicinity. From just the intro alone, it's clear that Nineveh is extremely dangerous and a high-class threat. But of course, it'd be one thing if Nineveh was alone in this introduction. Section 6 also makes a debut, and whilst Miyabi is off to catch Nineveh, Tsukishiro Yanagi, Asaba Harumasa, and Sokaku are on the ground floor to explain the situation. Through Yanagi's dialogue, we're given the impression that Section 6 is a group of extremely strong investigators that are sent out to deal with serious threats only they can handle. In layman's terms, they're the real deal. And no better is this demonstrated through Miyabi, who not only takes out one of Nineveh's hornets to save us, but without hesitation, rushes towards Nineveh to take it on in a fight. Section 6 can only watch from the ground, as Miyabi is already in the sky, running and jumping across floating buildings as she effortlessly deals with Nineveh's seemingly endless swarm. Managing to catch up with it, Miyabi halts Nineveh's ascent, and prepares to unleash a humongous strike onto the ethereal. The blue flames charge around her sword's sheath. Her hair begins to catch a flame in the exact same way, and the aura that surrounds Miyabi escalates further and further, until Nineveh reaches her, and... The blow she dealt may not be fatal, but it's enough to have Nineveh fleeing to the skies, as Miyabi gracefully lands onto the ground, returning her sword to its sheath. What Miyabi says afterwards also says a lot about her level of strength, and more importantly, her expectations.
It was a clean slash. It should have struck the ethereal instantly, like a wooden mallet hitting a porcelain vase. but it felt cumbersome, more like dragging a piece of chalk over a blackboard.
Call me crazy, but I think the mission is pretty solidified after you ran photosynthesis the ethereal out of town with their tail between their wings. The fact that Miyabi expected more out of her swing shows that she holds her power to a high regard, and rightfully so. It's a small line, but it helps to add on to that already fantastic first impression. Watching as Miyabi so convincingly charges towards an ethereal of that size shows to me more than just how strong she is compared to what we've seen so far in the story. It takes a lot of conviction to see something that dangerous and have your first instinct be run towards it. It's a different kind of power, one that, as a viewer, speaks to me a lot more than just physical strength. Other than a small appearance during the end of Chapter 2's interlude, there isn't much else to cover for Miyabi at the current point. The Zenless story writers were smart in making her appearances scarce, giving us small glimpses into Miyabi's involvement with the story. Moments like her comment with Zhu Wen over the phone helped to connect Section 6 to the main plot, due to how she and the rest of Section 6 had received the evidence provided by PubSec on the UCC's remains. This eventually brought her into the sacrifice crisis and would soon bring her to be involved with the proxies. And to think, this was all just the initial game. The 1.1 update of ZZZ wouldn't bring any further developments for Miyabi, but this was just fine, since there'd be no reason for her to show up in the story about rats and cats. And you'd think the same would come for 1.2, where we saw the proxies chasing after Perlman for answers once he landed in the Outer Ring. A wild outskirts journey to find the pride of the Outer Ring. Now, that sounds like an adventure to me. Too bad the 1.2 was kind of underwhelming. Hey, don't throw your pitchforks and torches at me. Lucy carried this story and I will die in this. Anyways, at the end of 1.2, Wise and Bell would make their way towards the center of the chasm, which was a byproduct of the Hollow disaster that resulted in the fall of the old capital. While not the first time we've heard of this event in game, it's the first we learn of its significance to our two main characters. Wise and Bell recount their travels through the Throne Quarter when they were little, where they would scour numerous roads and landmarks in order to come face to face with their former teacher, Carol Arna. At this point in the story, we don't know much about who their teacher is, nor do we know about Wise and Bell's past. But this scene told us about how the two of them dearly missed their beloved teacher and their home of Helios Academy. However, once Fairy tries to search for Carol's name in the database, we learn that instead of being remembered for her tragic passing, she is remembered in infamy, as the main culprit that resulted in the birth of Hollow Zero, which would soon cause the disastrous events we know as the old capital's fall, and everything that came with it. Even though Wise and Bell don't fully admit to this view of Carol Arna being incorrect, they speak on how their true wish is to find clues in the depths of Hollow Zero that will prove Carol's innocence. But then, rather than leave this sorrowful note as just that, Zenless decides to play a very interesting card. One that would change how, in my opinion, Miss Hoshimi Miyabi is viewed in the story for the remainder of her screen time.
Or the head of Section 6, Hoshimi Miyabi.
That's correct. And you're the leaders of the independent investigation team with the exceptional guide Bangbu. I did not anticipate being bested by you.
We're honored you remember us. But being bested by us, what do you mean?
I am training to be the first to reach the Chasm Memorial. I would like to spend some more time with her, alone.
So you're here to pay your respects to the deceased too?
Yes, my mother.
My condolences. I hope you can find peace soon.
Thank you. But I don't intend to find peace.
You don't want to find peace?
Indeed. I shall not seek peace until all those responsible for the fall of the old capital are apprehended.
In my opinion, this scene acts as the truest introduction to the kind of character Miyabi would become within the story of Zenless Zone Zero. Her demonstration of strength was an incredible first impression, of course, one that conveyed a level of power that no one in the verse had been able to reach. But remember when I said that the underlying note of that scene was how Miyabi ran in without hesitation? The deep-rooted conviction that allows for Miyabi to tackle such dangerous hollow disasters without fear comes growling back in our faces with a simple line. She looks over with a piercing gaze, as if something quietly burns within the depths of her crimson pupils. This isn't just something you say about someone that is aloof on the surface. The calm and collected Miyabi, despite what her actions may convey, doesn't entirely desire peace. Of course, that isn't to say what Miyabi truly seeks is fully written out here for us to see. Far from it. And no way am I trying to imply that she's at all antagonistic or villainous in her intentions. But that's just it. This scene provides so much while saying so little. It hints at this subtle anger that burns bright within Miyabi's heart, one that directly flies in the face of the goal that our main characters seek to accomplish. You all must understand, there was a genuine question and concern in the community based on how Miyabi could stand against us. And considering what we just saw 3 chapters ago, I don't think Wise and Bell are really standing a chance here. But that's enough story speculation for now. Now comes the speculation where everyone was trying to answer one simple question. With the slow but clear push towards Miyabi's inclusion in the story, it got lots of people wondering, just when the heck were we gonna be able to play as this fiery fox Thyron? By this point, we had gone through 6 limited agents, with none of them being Miyabi, and 2 more on the way with 1.3. Sure, one of them was Tsukishiro Yanagi from Section 6, but Lighter's arrival from the Sons of Caledon put a wrench into any potential Section 6 focus headcanon people were desiring. And yes, your gracious host just so happened to be one of those people, as much as I hate to admit it. Look, I had nothing against Lighter, but man, did his arrival really piss me off. Don't worry though, me and him get along just fine now. He's making Hugo do wonders. Regardless, while Miyabi wasn't out of the cards by any means, things certainly weren't looking pretty. Without a clear answer as to when Miyabi would release, it was very possible that she'd drop as far as into the next year. And this was a real concern among the player base, even after 1.3 was seemingly ready to go and Haramasa would receive his drip marketing. Miyabi had no signs of appearing. Would 1.3 reveal the answers we were looking for? Would content creators be able to milk the lack of drip any more than they already were? Would Sakako remain as the only member of Section 6 in the roster for another patch? Well, with the release of 1.3, one of these questions was answered, thankfully. Virtual Revenge would release on November 6th of last year, and with this special episode putting a huge focus on Section 6 and their endeavors through the HIA's virtual reality prison, it was a great story about how much the members of Section 6 trusted Yanagi to get things done, and to be the glue that held the team together. Oh, and it also just so happened to give us a rework of Miyabi's model that absolutely made her look much better. Listen, I love Miyabi as much as the next guy, but this was Sid the Sloth. Though, let's be honest with ourselves. It was just an opportunity to watch Section 6 style on an unsuspecting one-note villain. At least one note for now. Even still, 1.3 release date comes and still no sign of the Miyabi drip. Maybe if it was a couple days, people wouldn't have been as worried as they were. But a whole week? Come on, Zenless devs. Just throw us some kind of Side. Ah! Oh my god, chat, it's real! Oh, Miyabi's ancient record! Oh, she's real! Yes! Oh, it's cool! In my 25 years of living, there are only a couple of moments where I've been able to witness so many people collectively come together for a singular hype moment. Moments such as Sora or Sephiroth's reveal for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the climactic battle between Jiren and Goku in episode 130 of Dragon Ball Super, where thousands of people would come to a stage just to watch it in front of a crowd. And now, even though it may not be on par with those moments, mind you, on November 7th of 2024 at 11 p.m., this would solidify as one of those very moments. After a year of being gone from the hands of players, Hoshimi Miyabi finally had a definitive release window. Not only was she no longer an attack agent, but she was also a new element? What was this icon? It certainly looks like ice, but it's way too curvy to just be the same element, right? It looks like a mix of ice and fire. Just what the hell were those devs cooking in the kitchen? Regardless of how many questions the player base would have about Miyabi's status in-game, it felt like we could breathe a sigh of relief the day where Miyabi would finally return to us was slowly approaching. Of course, as insane as this may sound for the time, I ended up skipping Lighter and Yanagi just to have as many pulls for Miyabi as possible. I mean, hell, if there was any character I was gonna go all in for, it was her. This did mean skipping what everyone believed to be Miyabi's best teammate, but that was just fine. I had Bernice on my account, and a guaranteed lined up from losing the 50-50 for an M1. The stage was set for Miyabi to finally come home. But until that time came, we had some time to kill. And what better way to kill time than speculation? Now, of course, a lot of this speculation went into just what kind of element Miyabi was rocking in comparison to the rest of the cast. Just what the hell did that icon mean? Some content creators speculated that Miyabi would be a dual element DPS, allowing for you to potentially cover two elements at once. And honestly, is that more broken than what we got? Probably not. Not to mention, if she remained in Ice DPS like she was in Beta, what would that mean for Elle and Joe? Would that mean that she'd be power crept? Would that mean that Miyabi would become the next best DPS for mono ice teams with Lycon and Sokaku? The possibilities were nearly endless here. It felt like just the old Smash 4 days, where we would take just a couple of shots from a trailer for a new character and be speculating just what their moveset would have to offer. The level of excitement this drew for the game cannot be underestimated here. This was humongous for ZZZ. Soon enough, a lot of our questions would be answered through the 1.4 livestream, where in a first for Zenless, we'd receive word straight from the developers' mouths about just what was going to go down. And trust me, it went down. We learned about how 1.4 would be the grand climax of Season 1 for ZZZ, and how Section 6's part in the story would decide the fate of New Eridu as we knew it. We'd also get to learn about the origins and secrets of Miyabi's ethereal slaying katana, Teos, and how it connects to the whole story together. From a gameplay perspective, we officially learned that Miyabi wielded her own unique element, named Frost. While mechanically working similar to Ice, Frost had its own properties that would work in tandem with Miyabi's kit. How, through applying things such as Ice Fire and Frost Burn to the enemy, Miyabi's game plan centered around working with anomaly agents to inflict disorders and gain fallen frost points in order to unleash her monstrous enhanced basic attacks. And while we wouldn't understand the full scope of how good it would be, this felt like we were watching glimpses of the ultimate anomaly agent. We don't even need to talk about those animations because goodness gracious, they were in the kitchen frying with those animations. Even by today's standards of character animations, Miyabi stands out as being incredibly flashy and fluid. Funnily enough, this stream was also our introduction to the first ever Deadly Assault, which, okay, while some people may have their opinions on it, I personally think Deadly Assault has been a net positive for the game. But that's besides the point. Aside from all the Miyabi content, this update would also bring many new things to the table that change how Zenless would be forever. TV mode finally became optional as this update dropped. Guides for character building were integrated into the game itself, quality time events officially dropped, and more importantly, the decibel system completely changed. Rather than sharing one ultimate across the whole team, every character would have their own decibel count and by extension, ultimate. This change completely flipped the combat of Zenless Zone Zero around on its head, and for a lot of people, myself included, it really felt like the combat finally lived up to its potential. It felt like we were given that much needed skill expression that the game was desperately craving. So yeah, needless to say, 1.4 was looking to be sort of a soft reboot for Zenless. With all of these changes, it was safe to say that everyone was pretty hyped for the climax of Season 1 to drop. Though, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, of course! We'd also eventually get 3 videos that would give some exposition on Miyabi's story, and how she came to be the person she is now. Though, considering how the prior trailers haven't been as crazy, I'm sure this one won't be
Any potential threat to the city must be completely eradicated. That is the fundamental principle of hand.
We've changed our route so many times, but they're still hot on our heels. Hold on. Trust me. I can beat him.
Section 6, Operation Start.
Zenless Zone Zero's all-new version. A storm of falling stars. The Void Hunter arrives. Hoshimi Miyabi joins the fight. S-rank agent Asaba Harumasa available for free.
To be honest with all of you, I don't think I was ever expecting something like this to drop from Zenless Zone Zero. You've got to understand, before this, trailers for characters like Jane Doe, Yanagi, and even Caesar to a degree were primarily ways to show angles for the characters and how pretty they were. And while that definitely did work, it was at least safe to assume that Miyabi's trailers wouldn't go as hard as they did. Man, am I so glad to be wrong. As an heir to the Hoshimi family, Miyabi from birth seemed to be destined for the sword. The moment that she crawled towards the little wooden blade immediately brought eyes upon her from different members of the clan. But Miyabi's mother wouldn't want her to just become another user of the demonic blade tailless. She wished for Miyabi to live an ordinary, happy life. This included playing, eating her proper veggies, and training with weapons that weren't just a sword. The idea of training wasn't just to get stronger in these cases. It was simply to learn as much as possible, but also to grow and mature through numerous different experiences. But it was then that Miyabi had learned her desire to become a hero wasn't just a fairy tale kept in a neatly wrapped bow for her to eventually undergo. It was a story forced upon her by horrid tragedy.
Miyabi. Listen to Mommy and close your eyes. This is our last training. Miyabi, don't be sad. Don't be afraid.
All Miyabi could do was watch as her slowly corrupting mother suddenly thrusted Talus unto herself, making Miyabi's mom the newest sacrifice for the demonic sword. And as life left Miyabi's mother's eyes, tears of the young fox tyranny erupted into a flame fueled by negative emotion, by anger, by rage. The scene cuts to present-day Miyabi, cutting down ethereals to save her mother and her daughter, without saying anything. Even to the mother's thank you, she walks away. "When I grow up, I'm gonna become a hero, just like you," exclaims the daughter, in a way that would make anyone smile that they could inspire the next generation. But knowing the weight such a statement holds, all Miyabi can do is turn and frown. It cannot be understated just how much this short film did for Miyabi and her character. Not just for the general player base, but I guess for this vision that they were trying to create for the character. The origin of that conviction that allowed for Miyabi to jump into danger headfirst without an ounce of fear wasn't made through a desire for heroism and yearning for peace. It was built through that same burning fire that engulfed Miyabi all those years ago. A rage that wished to destroy the hollows that took so many innocent lives, spread nothing but disaster and cataclysm in their wake, and that took Miyabi's mother away from her. Hearing Miyabi's horrifying, fury-filled screams as she destroys every ethereal in sight with the power of Talus, only to hear the tears that followed, is heartbreaking. It's terrifying. Having seen the things Miyabi would do to destroy ethereals, regardless of their size, from as early as chapter 1, it finally felt like this puzzle that the developers were trying to curate was forming before our very eyes. Sure, you could say that I'm looking at things too deeply, or that it isn't the intention of the devs to hint at such a wonderfully tragic story as far as the beginning of the game, but truthfully, I do genuinely believe this was their intent from the get-go, especially because the trailer that would just come 2 days after this one would solidify everything. Rise of the Void Hunter does so much more than allow Miyabi to aura farm for 6 minutes straight. Receiving word that a new companion hollow named Argos was spreading rapidly, Tops had the brilliant plan of blowing up Shiyu Pillar 7 in order to destroy every ethereal in the vicinity of the hollow and inside of it. And although this plan would work, it would come at the sacrifice of every evacuating citizen within the blast radius. Now, Miyabi, who just so happened to be on the helicopter during this briefing, decided to have a wonderfully Miyabi-coded plan to destroy Lerna, the ever-expanding ethereal within this Argos Hollow. Dive down deep into Argos, destroy every core of it, fake or real, within 5 minutes in order to completely stop the spread of the Hollow. Needless to say, the top exec aboard the helicopter finds this idea completely ridiculous. But to Miyabi, 5 minutes is more than worth the 208 people currently trying to escape the spread. And so, without hesitation, Miyabi jumps out of the helicopter and soars down into the Argos Hollow. Like a burning comet, crashing down from the depths of space, she wields Talus with extreme precision, using that time in order to completely destroy Lerna and stop the spread of the Argos Hollow in its entirety. To a lot of people, it was the speed and strength displayed by Miyabi that got her the title of Void Hunter in this instance. But I don't think it's as simple as that, based on what we've seen. Dare I say, thinking like this undervalues the kind of play she made here. Even with imminent death surely to come, Miyabi doesn't hesitate for a second to jump into a currently expanding hollow and eradicate an ethereal potentially the size of Nineveh in order to save the civilians trying to escape. Miyabi deserved, no, she fucking earned the title of Void Hunter because of the fact that the fire within her yearns for justice above all else. The justice that tells her it's just the right thing to do to put her life on the line so no one else would have to go through what she did, lose what she lost. A blade fuming with resentment and wrath, pointed at the purest chaotic evil in New Eridu, the Hollows. Whew. Okay, that was definitely a lot. But you've all got to understand, one cannot simply speak about stuff like this without feeling some kind of passion. You want to see this character be able to live the life they deserve. Bear witness to the story the developers wish to tell. And just 2 days later, after this trailer would drop, on this very day, 2 years ago, we would finally be able to view the Promised Land. It was time.
Purging flash!
And so, on December 18th of 2024, Miyabi would officially release into Zenless Zone Zero, alongside the anticipated 1.4 update. Oh, and Haramasa too. Love your Haramasa.
Is it time to clock out?
Of course, the hype was incredibly high within the community to finally get their hands on this wonderful Fox Siren. And the consensus was, yes, she was absolutely broken. Being the only anomaly agent that wished to be built through crit rate and crit damage, it meant that Miyabi had a surplus of damage output that no other anomaly character would even dream of reaching. Paired with excellent teammates in the form of Yanagi, Sokaku, Lycon, and even Lighter and Lucy as an offbeat choice, Miyabi was incredibly flexible. She absolutely decimated every boss in the game, even ones that weren't weak to ice, and easily turned the game into a one-player experience. Combine that with the fact that Miyabi didn't always need to be on field in order to build or fall in cross points, and you have a DPS that can almost do anything. She was, and still is, undeniably the strongest character in Zenless Zone Zero. She was a little tricky to build though, needing specifically 80 crit rate in order to get the most damage out of her core passive. Therefore, you need to usually have really good substats in order to reach this benchmark. Now of course, her Mindscapes only made her even stronger, with her M2 in particular doing a lot for making Miyabi even easier to play, if that was even possible. A fallen frost point for every finished basic attack string, more damage off of her dodge, counter, and basic attacks, and get this, giving her 15 base crit rate upon just entering the battlefield, which meant that you only needed 65 for her full buff, and could invest that into other areas like crit damage and attack percent. Someone that would have an M2 Miyabi would be pretty much set to take on any threats the game had to offer. And someone just so happened to get her at M3 while being a light spender. Oh, come on! Don't give me that! I've been a Miyabi believer since day one. I freaking earned it. In any case, this is purely from a gameplay perspective, of course. Story-wise, 1.4 brought a lot to offer for Miyabi. Chapter 5, A Storm of Falling Stars, was the climax of Season 1's story, both from a story perspective and especially from the spectacle aspects too. What starts as a rendezvous between cunning hares and Section 6 gone wrong turns into Miyabi helping Bell and Wise escape from the hollow of the Outer Ring. From there, we see Miyabi's first experience of Talus losing control, as the seal keeping its etheric energy in check was weakened during a scuffle. As such, a rush of foxflame imbues from the blade, and the voices from each sacrifice taken by Talus beckoning Miyabi to kill, battle, and sate the blade's appetite fills her ears. It's only when Wise and Bell help Miyabi sheathe the blade that its wrath is quelmed, for now. Through interacting with us, we get a better view of Miyabi on a regular day-to-day basis, and how she conducts herself to most of her team. She's aloof, yes, but sometimes says something that really is odd, but somehow makes sense.
And she's easy to persuade. All you need to do is look her in the eyes, take her by the hand, and tell her your thoughts gently. The closer you are, the better. You can give it a try once she's back, Proxy.
Chief? Where'd you even learn that?
I learned it from Juyuen's mother. I've tried it, and it's very effective.
Unfortunately, in trying to find Perlman and ensure his safety, Miyabi and the rest of Section 6 end up being cornered by Bringer. With Yanagi helping set the stage, Miyabi takes notice of the lie she's playing at and feeds into it, implying to Bringer that Section 6 was only trying to rein in their chief's misconduct, and that Miyabi was solely to blame. To the shock of everybody, after throwing Perlman into the hollow behind them, Miyabi is arrested immediately and kept in a truck by public security. This plan wasn't exactly sound, no, but there was definitely a vision here. If Miyabi could take the fall for the squad, then Yanagi, Harumasa, and Sukaku could use their newfound freedom to find Perlman and to make sure that everything on their end was secure enough to move towards the final stages to take Ringer down. It's not like somehow, they can bypass the fingerprint while keeping Miyabi's sword at bay.
It is indeed so beautiful. This monstrous energy is exactly what we need.
What?
Oh, that's bad. Okay, quick explanation. See, the reason why, back in 1.3, Section 6 was stuck in the virtual reality tech of the HIA was because of the infamous Nullface. While Section 6 had been tracking them down for a long time, the hacker managed to keep them all stuck in the HIA's database, abusing their powers to collect data of the consciousness of each Section 6 member. They even managed to copy Miyabi's data completely and make a clone out of it, which Miyabi managed to take out with ease, by the way. But at the end of the chapter, Miyabi's data wasn't terminated and was fully uploaded to a location outside of the virtual reality world. That data is the exact thing that Sarah needed in order to bypass the fingerprint lock, and now, Talus and free and out of control. Which is really, really bad. Miyabi quickly reaches to try and quell the blade, but ends up succumbing to its fiery corruption-fueled inferno. The red eyes she shows once holding Talus are evidence enough. Miyabi has lost her senses. Thankfully, Miyabi is pushed into the dead-end hollow before she can hurt anyone by the proxy and Juyuen, but Miyabi is simply left to stay in her own head, facing the consequences of succumbing to Talus. What takes place is Miyabi fighting every single urge to give in to Talus' endless calls for blood and killing. The sequence was incredibly intense, with Miyabi even having to take down an astral projection of Nineveh and hold back her burning hand from taking out the projections of every innocent in the area and even her comrades. Eventually, Miyabi had enough of the sacrifices calling for her to add more to the kill count and confronted the spirits of Talos head on. It was fascinating to see Miyabi's pure determination and willpower on display in this instance, declaring to the spirits that she will break the cycle of tragedy that has loomed over the Hoshimi family for generations. Felt like she was confronting the demons that took everything away from her. Even with her shortcomings, Miyabi would never falter in that true and fierce resolve that allowed for her to swing the blade as easily as she did towards evil. She doesn't choose to invalidate the things that happened in times of old or the sacrifices that happened, nor does she speak with what would be well-deserved anger towards these spirits. It's an incredible moment that, in my opinion, puts into perspective the core themes of Zenless' story. The will to fight against the despair that loss creates, screaming back into the hollow without fear.
I come alive, burn in the night like wildfire. For me in the blue and moon, I'm following the stars. Where I will fight until I run out of air in my lungs, fighting for the ones that are lost in the hollow. I know it's hard to see the end. I know it's hard to see the end. I know it's hard to see the end.
And so, we've begun to reach the end of this wonderfully unique journey for ZZZ. Now that we've covered just how big Miyabi was for Zenless Zone Zero, that begs the question, where does Miyabi stand now? As much as I'd love to say that Miyabi has still gone this far into the game uncontested, the answer is a little more complicated than this. Throughout updates 1.5 to 1.7, Miyabi still stood as the game's DPS queen, which created a unique case for Zenless and its balancing. Even with characters like Evelyn, Soldier Zero Ambi, and Hugo being introduced to the game, Miyabi would remain as the game's power ceiling. It's not hard to see why, since even outside of how none of these characters could reach Miyabi's biggest numbers throughout the duration of a fight, new team options such as Astra and Vivian would increase Miyabi's strength and flexibility. Though as 2.0 rolled around, the Rupture meta began to take place, as Yi Shuen would be outputting damage at a rate none of the cast could reach. While she didn't overtake Miyabi's spot as number 1, a more pronounced number 2 had finally come into play. The big thing preventing Yi Shuen from rising any higher, however, was the limitations of Rupture when it came to team composition. Even with giving updates to the kits of Astra, Lucy, Coletta, and Pokra in order to help give Rupture some options, it didn't compare to what Anomaly could cook up. 2.1 didn't help with this either, as Alice and especially Yuzuha came in to bring an even bigger Anomaly chokehold over the game's meta. You thought Miyabi was broken with Astra alongside her, try giving her a dedicated support with 1200 attack for the team, 15% damage bonus, and up to a 20% increase towards anomaly damage, build-up, and disorder damage. Oh, and she just happened to build anomalies off-field just like Bernice. 2.2 tried to mediate the gap between the attack and anomaly class by introducing Seed and Orphe, two very powerful characters that breathed new life for attack team comps again, but even then it still wasn't enough. However, while the characters themselves weren't really matching Miyabi's level of damage, there was something very important that was showing this push towards anti-Miyabi, if you will. The bosses. While not all of these bosses were ice resistant, the commonality between the Miasma Priest, Miasmic Fiend, and the Defiler is that they can't be frozen. This is a humongous aspect of these bosses that leads to Miyabi not having favorable matchups against them. Combine that with how they all have increased anomaly resistance, and you've got yourself a recipe for Anomaly's downfall. Kind of. Lucia dropped as the first S-rank support dedicated to the Rupture class, with a unique Ether Veil mechanic that would apply numerous buffs to sheer force, HP, and crit damage. These buffs would do well to support new Rupture agents Monotone and Yudhari, yes, but Yishuen absolutely relished in what Lucia had to offer. The gap was beginning to close, and this was evident. Yishuen already had a clear second place in most people's minds, but now? She was starting to match the numbers that Miyabi was putting out in her prime. Now, of course, buffs from Deadly Assault and other endgame modes certainly did help with this, but I wouldn't say that it discredits the numbers people were seeing. Truth be told, it's kinda hard to nail where the community stands on this. One day you'll be hearing about how the newest boss, despite being Ice Weak, can't be cleared with a Miyabi squad. And then all of a sudden it actually does clear. People are saying that Miyabi can clear everything in the game despite having a losing matchup. It's very annoying, to say the very least. But this isn't a video made to try to speak on back and forths between the community. That'd be way too nauseating for my tastes. More so, it's to show that at the current point we're in right now, Miyabi is perfectly fine. Miyabi is currently on the watch list for Pride Wins tier list, and honestly, I don't think that that's so bad. It's not like her dropping off to tier 0.5 will suddenly mean she's bad, and it should also mean that any Miyabi loyalists that love playing her shouldn't feel discouraged about playing her. In case you're all curious, here's the team that I currently use with Miyabi right now. It's a bit of a weird and unorthodox setup, yes, but being with the game for this long, the most fun I get from it is being able to make crazy teams like this work where they may not. Does it only work because I have an M3 Miyabi? We don't need to talk about that. If, for a moment, I can be just a touch vulnerable, I've been really trying to figure out how to put an end to this video, or at least how to articulate my thoughts without repeating myself. Cause not gonna lie, this video was tricky. Not just because of how I wanted to make sure I got everything right from a practical standpoint, and even then I may have messed up on some parts, but I also wanted to ensure that my feelings towards Miyabi came out clear and concise. This character has grown near and dear to my heart. I can really only describe it through the giddiness I feel every time I get to play as her. I remember back when I was on a Discord call with a friend, and she showed me gameplay of ZZZ in its earlier stages, and that was enough to get me interested in the game, but it wasn't until I saw that first initial trailer and saw Miyabi there that I truly wanted to play this game. So, yes, it's safe to say that Miyabi, if not for her, I may not be playing Zenless right now. I owe her a lot for that. In everything but the icon of the game, Miyabi damn near feels like the mascot of ZZZ. She represents everything that I love about this game. The story, the combat, the world of Zenless, and its plight. All of that is epitomized through this one character. That isn't to say, though, that Miyabi was the peak of my enjoyment. Absolutely not. I'd be doing Zenless a disservice if I said that. 2.x, although it's had some ups and downs, it has been incredible for me, both in terms of its story and its character design. Monoto and Yudhari are some of my favorite agents to play, and the Rupture playstyle, even if it's in contention for bringing her down from the #1 spot, is one of my favorites. This game is just so fun, so awesome. And again, I wouldn't be playing it if not for this silly fox siren. And I hope that, at the very least, this video has been able to do a good job of conveying why even after a year after her release, Hoshimi Miyabi is Zenless's greatest character.